Alright, this is Mr. Allison, and this is the Unit 1 World Geography Test Review. The test is going to be 50 questions, multiple choice. There'll be a lot of map questions and chart questions and things of that sort, but a few things you need to know, and I'll hit everything you need to know based on each question as I go through. So latitude and longitude, make sure you understand how to find where something is based on coordinates. And remember which ones run parallel to the equator and which ones are horizontal. And then make sure you know your basic different types of maps. So you'll need to know the difference between a political map and then a topographical map, thematic map, things of that sort, and why you would use them and for what. And then for location, you know the difference between relative and absolute location. So absolute location is trying to find the coordinates, the exact location of something. Relative location is where it is relative to something else. So like Marcus High School is a quarter mile south of Sonic. And then you need to know about Pangaea. So Pangaea was the supercontinent millions of years ago, and then they spread apart, forming the continents we have today. And that whole theory of the continents moving and spreading is called continental drift. And then you need to know all the things that can change temperature. So like an increase in elevation, for example, will decrease the temperature outside as you go up in elevation. Then there's going to be a thematic map that shows the different continents, and the bigger the continent, the more it's affected by disasters. So it's going to look kind of crazy. It looks like bubbles and stuff, but the one that's bigger is the one that's affected most by disasters. And then you know the difference between weather and climate. So weather is the condition at one place in a particular time, so what it is like outside right now, whereas in climate is what it is like in a certain area over a long period of time, so like the average temperature, the average amount of rain it gets, things like that. You know what affects wind patterns, and then you need to know your different zones of latitude. So you have the Arctic zone around the Arctic Circle, so obviously it's sub-zero temperatures, little precipitation. And then you have your temperate zones, which we're in a temperate zone. So here you see all 4 seasons. It can be hot in the summer, cold in the winter. And then you have your tropics, which is in between the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn. And that area is pretty much hot all year. You only have 2 seasons, a wet season and a dry season. Alright, and then you need to know the different types of trees and where you'd find them. So coniferous trees, like pine trees, those are going to be found in cold areas, upper altitudes, so like in Colorado up in the mountains in the Rockies or in Siberia. And then broadleaf trees or deciduous trees are like what we have around here, like oak and elm and stuff like that. Alright, and you know the different types of weathering, like chemical and physical weathering. And then the rain shadow, you know what that is. So basically that's where you have a mountain range and you have precipitation comes on one side of the mountains, rains on that side, but then the precipitation cannot make it over to the other side of the mountain range, and so you see what's called a rain shadow, which is really a desert. So you see that like in Southern California, where when you're next to the coast, there's a lot of vegetation, it's cool weather, they get a lot of rain. Then as soon as you go about 30 or 40 miles inland, it turns into a wasteland, a desert, all the way until central Texas. Again, know your different types of maps. Know where earthquakes occur, which is along fault lines. You need to know the different types of fault lines, the divergent, convergent, and transform, and what happens along each one. And then more maps. And then your different climate zones. You need to know what tropical, wet, semi-arid, Mediterranean, and tundra are. So just look up the definitions of those particular climate zones: tropical, wet, semi-arid, Mediterranean, and tundra. So just know, again, the basic temperatures you would see there, the amount of precipitation in the general area in the world where that would be. Then you need to know why we have 4 seasons on Earth, which has to do with the tilt of the Earth on the axis, and as the Earth revolves around the Sun, different parts of the Earth get more direct sunlight than others. You know what the Ring of Fire is, which is around the Pacific Ocean mainly. That's where you see most of the earthquakes and the volcanic activity on Earth. It's very volatile in that region. And then you need to know how warm ocean currents affect climate in an area. So if you have a warm ocean current coming by, it's going to obviously make the land warm. You'll get more precipitation in that area because of it. Like we have a warm current in the Gulf of Mexico, which is why this area is so warm and we get so much precipitation. And then continentality, you know what that is. Basically what that means is that the further away you are from the ocean, the less moderating effect from the ocean you get on the climate. So the climate's going to be much more extreme in places that are far away from the ocean, that are in the middle of the land. So like the middle of Siberia, there's not an ocean nearby, so it can get down to -60 or -70 during the winter. Alright, then you know what a perceptual region is. A perceptual region is something that's up to an opinion. So the example used in class was like the South. You know, what do you consider to be part of the South in the United States? And that's just based on people's ideas and beliefs and stuff, and their stereotypes and what they consider to be part of the South. Going back to earthquakes, you need to know what an epicenter is. The epicenter is the center of the earthquake. So it's a spot on the ground above the area where the earthquake originated from. And then, of course, you need to know what a seismograph is, which measures the amount the earth shakes. So that uses the Richter scale, 10 being the highest on the Richter scale. And then going back to climate zones and vegetation zones, you need to know like where you would find what. So like I said, coniferous trees, coniferous forests, they would be in colder regions like in the Arctic or up in the Rockies up high in the mountains. Broadleaf trees, those are going to be in areas like we are, kind of temperate areas. Temperate grasslands, we're in a temperate grasslands like humid subtropical area where we get quite a bit of rainfall. It's pretty warm. You need to know the different spheres of lithosphere, hydrosphere, biosphere, and hemisphere, and what each one makes up. Let's see, here's more maps. And make sure, again, you know your 5 themes of geography, so like know the definitions of each one and be able to give examples of them, like human-environment interaction and what that means. You need to remember what GIS is, Geographic Information Systems, and those are the different layers that you can add to a map to see different bits of information, kind of like on Google Earth when we looked at that. Alright, then ice as it changes over time and then erodes areas, that's called glaciation. So like a glacier as it moves and then tears apart land. And then like I said, going back to the weathering thing, make sure you know the difference between chemical and mechanical weathering and examples of each. You know the general idea of map scaling, that when we take the world, which is 3D, and then put it on a 2D map, that continents are going to be distorted, so some continents will look bigger than others. It's like an example of that is when Greenland on a map looks huge, like almost bigger than South America, when in reality Greenland is tiny and South America is huge, and so that's called map distortion, and that happens whenever we draw 2D maps. Some more maps. So remember, a globe is a 3D image of the world. That's about the easiest question on here. Well, actually, not really. The next one, and this is just on here, not because we went over it, but just because it's common sense, or it should be. Africa, is it a continent or a country? Correct answer, it's a continent. There's about 63 countries, 64 countries on Africa, but Africa is a continent. Alright, so that's about it. So just watch this video a few times, of course go over your vocabulary, look back over the unit presentations, the tests you're going to do on your own individually, and then the last about 5 minutes of class or so, I'll let y'all pair up and go over it real quick as much as you can, but you have to do it on your own at first. It's not open note. at all. So it's not like the quiz today. It's you got to study and know it.